Thomas Blug, welcome to Australian Musician.
Hey, nice for having me. It's a big pleasure and honor because I'm a big fan of Australia. I've been to Australia, I don't know, maybe 10 times.
Oh, really?
And yeah, I like the country and the people very much.
Okay, have you performed here?
Um, Not officially. I had friends in Sydney. Some of my friends married some Australian, um, and I was their best man. And of course, this made me fly to Sydney, and I kind of fell in love with the city, and all the tons of beaches, stuff that we don't have here in Germany. um, and yeah, everything cool besides the little spiders and stuff. Redbacks.
Yeah. Thomas, you do many things. You're a musician, songwriter, performer, gear designer.
Mm-hmm.
As you said, you've been a producer as well. You also have a popular YouTube channel. And
Yeah.
I was watching your live stream, the latest one on Woodstock. Um,
Ah.
and I found that fascinating because you pointed out how much of a showcase it was for different kinds of guitarists. And I hadn't sort of thought about Woodstock like that before. You were saying how Alvin Lee was the original shredder and Carlos Santana
Yeah.
had his style, and Pete Townsend, his riffs, and
Mm-hmm.
of course Hendrix.
Mm-hmm.
Wondering, when you're designing, are you thinking about all those different types of guitarists, or are you more creating something for yourself?
I always wear two hats, It's being me, the selfish Thomas Blug, that wants everything for himself first. And the good thing about that is that kind of sets the quality level because, I'm this kind of no compromise guy.
To get a basic foundation in the technology that is able to get my tone is getting a platform that later on, which is my second hat, being a session player in the past, recording in studios.
And then thinking about other guitar players, um, giving the variety of sounds and tones that are also needed. But I have my own reference tone. Some people call it like my signature tone. It's for me it's a natural thing, but other people like my tone and think it's great. I just do my thing. I roll off the volume a lot, and I use kind of Marshall Plexi style of tones that are cranked, so I get a lot of dynamics, and that requires a certain quality in design. And once that is set, I find it pretty easy to get other tones out of the same platform.
Just going back to Woodstock for a minute, because I know
Yeah.
you're a bit of a rock historian or tone historian. I wonder if at Woodstock they had modern day technology, modern day sound. Do you think all those bands would have the same character, or do you think they'd sound more alike?
I think in the early days, the amplifiers were way simpler. I mean, if you look at the amps that have been at Woodstock, there were Fenders, Marshalls, the obvious stuff. And they were so basic in a way that the players had to create a tone with their instruments, their hands, and it's not kind of hidden behind reverbs, delays, and stuff like that. It's more they had to fight, And when you see, the energy that guitar players at Woodstock put behind the strings, how much they were digging in, and how yeah, this is like taming a wild horse, and of course this energy forms the tone, and it is based on the character of the guitar player. So the guitar player makes the tone more than the gear. And like today's gear, sometimes it's too pleasing in a way. You know, you dial in a preset and it's kind of almost perfect. It's okay, I play a note and it's already there. And I kind of like that old school amplifiers exactly for that reason. And sometimes I get a lot of critics with my amp designs because they are a little bit too raw, too authentic for modern players, because they believe, oh, plug it in, you know, and everything is just perfect the way they expect it from maybe a modeler or, you know, something that is already refined in a way. But, you know, like on my amp, there's a vintage channel that is actually raw, and some people don't get it. But the people that know how to play the old vintage amps, they kind of like my vintage channel for what it is, because they can get what they have had with their, you know, beloved old, you know, Fenders, Marshalls and whatever old school amps that had that kind of dynamic that you had to tame, that you had to form the tone with, you know, with your hands.
You're famous for your BluGuitar amp. Mm-hmm. Originally, why did you feel the need to invent that product?
Well, it's based on my personal experience. When I was in my 20s and the music industry was kind of healthy, I was a studio guy, I was a session guy, I was hired and paid for playing in the studio. I was touring, and then so I had a selection of amps, and I was traveling with my bigger car back then. And when I was going on tour, I was playing with kind of bands that could have roadies and you know, people that set up your gear and came to my living room, and all my job was to mark the cables and say, you know, this is like 1-to-1 or alphabetic number system or you know, tape colors. So this is the way to set up my gear, and that was my job. But you know, I have reached a point with a German band called Tic Tac Toe, and we opened up for Michael Jackson. So it wasn't getting any bigger than playing in front of 120,000 people. And I've done this a couple of times. And then in the end, I was thinking, okay, where to go from there? And being a craftsman in the music industry as a musician, I decided I want to be more the artist in the second half of my life. You know, I started trying to be an artist, and then you know, just for making money reasons, and of course it was exciting too, you know. But once you had that, it's why should I stay there? And also I could see that the industry, the music industry, was kind of the best years were over. You know, I remember production with real big budgets. You know, I could lay down tons of tracks. We could spend thousands and thousands for big productions back in the 90s. And but then I felt like, what's next? And the next thing was coming back, forming my own band, doing my music. And then there was no backliner. There was nobody that was having the 4x12 in his hands. So the first thing I noticed is, oh, that's not fun. You know, living on the second floor in this building, you know, and my cabinet is even one higher, 3 floors with a 4x12 just by yourself. Don't do that. I mean, you know, I even had back issues. So this was a very big sign for me. Something has to change. And along that experience also, there was the thing that I found out with my technology background, that I was able to get the real deal sounds without the big transformers and the big tubes. So this was two things coming together, and this was like, yeah, this was the point where I decided, yeah, somebody has to do it. And me being like a freelance guy for Ochsenknecht for 27 years, knowing this company, knowing other companies, being in the industry already, I knew if I want to go and get this thing done right, I don't want to have a boss with a calculator telling me how many hours I should spend on a certain amp design. It was like, I have to be my own boss, because otherwise I would run into too many conflicts. And with the experience, I thought, you know, let's do it. I mean, if I don't do it, I would wait for another 10 years for somebody else to do it, or it might not even happen. So this was my moment, and it all kind of came naturally, because, you know, the musician felt like stuff has to get smaller, more lightweight. You know, I've been on airports with my all tube heads and whatever 30 kilogram cases and even more, and it's no fun, you know. So yeah, it was a natural progression in whatever happened in my life.
Yeah, as you said, 27 years at Ochsenknecht.
Right.
You're a very clever guy. You know a lot about electronics. The average guitar player does not know as much about electronics as you. Do you have to take yourself out of your tech mind and think more as a player when you're designing?
It's like I also have these two heads. You know, that's something I learned in my life, is like, you know, the artist going on stage, it takes me 5 seconds, maybe a minute, the moment where I leave the ordinary world with my friends and, you know, the people that you meet, and climb on a stage and be an artist. It's like you start the song and I can swap my mind, switch my mind. It's something I learned. Like in seconds, I can switch, and now I'm an artist, and I don't think about anything anymore. Not having whatever, a car, something, bills to pay. No, I become an artist, and I'm living in the world of the music then. And of course, it's also very healthy to switch back to normal, ordinary life afterwards, because the guys that stay on the artist side for the rest of their life, they get depressed in a way, because nobody is clapping their hands anymore. And you know, when I'm going off stage, it's like I know instantly this was a nice moment, but this moment is over. So I kind of learned that. And when it comes to designing stuff, I always wear two hats. I totally get the technology issues, problems, challenges, but on the other hand, it's like I can switch to the musician, and I can totally brutal about, no, me, the musician, doesn't want that feature. It's one too much. Or I want that feature because that's what I need. So that's maybe my style of designing products, and why the products are the way they are. It might appeal to some people, and it's something I couldn't find with other brands. Otherwise, I would never do that. It's the same like with music. I never go and copy somebody in a way. It's like, you just sound like this. I've done this as session work in the studio, and we actually kind of copied stuff in such a identical way to get out of the whatever royalties for the original composers. You know, when some dance producers kind of looped stuff, we had to play something that was like identical but wasn't their recording. So the record company could use something that sounded like 99.9% like the original but wasn't. So I've been there, and for me it was a nice challenge. But on the other hand, it's like I am a creative person. I hated to step in other people's shoes or steal ideas. I mean, it's like sometimes things are similar, but I never, if you know, and of course you get inspired, but it has to have your own elements. If it's too much like somebody else, I feel guilty. You know, it's like some people sometimes tell me, because I play melodic, you sound just like Satriani or something. But hey, I play a vintage Strat. I'm very proud to. And somebody says you just sound like Jeff Beck, and I said, yeah, but so I'm not Satriani and I'm not Beck either, and I'm not Stevie Ray Vaughan. I'm not. I do my thing, and of course I'm influenced, and I like all these players because it touches me, and something is kept in my soul, and that kind of comes back. But it's not like I'm sitting there trying to copy their licks and then presenting them as my own licks. Sorry, that's not my cup of tea, you know.
The BluGuitar Amp 1 was a great success, and then you gave us the Iridium and Mercury. What were the goals with those two newer models?
It's fairly simple. I started with the original, which didn't have a name, was just the Amp 1. And of course I needed to have a starting point. And the starting point was basically to get my tones, which are a bit more vintagey, a bit more bluesy, a bit more spongy, because that's where I personally come from. And then of course I've done that, and I'm still very happy about that first version. And then the next one was the Mercury edition, which is the same amp, but reflecting the feedback that I got from other players. Like, I could see how they liked stuff and how they maybe found, you know, they were searching for their tones. And me watching them inspired me to, whatever, change the treble control and have a bit of a different range there, and basically tighten up the low end a bit. I personally like to have spongy amps, and I kind of put it in a slightly different zone, but the Mercury and the original Amp 1, they're kind of still living in the same world. And of course, with learning all that stuff, I kind of improved everything, so the modern channel goes and is a bit more versatile and does more metal, but and the reverb is better, and so stuff that I could kind of improve a little bit from what I learned. But saying that, the first version has a character of its own, and it's not the substance, the tone character is still at a certain point at the same level. It's not worse. It has a different character. Look at Mesa Boogies, you know, Mark 1, Mark 2, Mark 3. Maybe the Mark 1 is the best sounding ever. And this is something people tell me about my Amp 1, the first version too. It's like, if you found your tone with that particular amp, that's your amp. And as it's an amp that is all analog, it is still flexible, but it has a certain character. And yeah, the Mercury edition is kind of a bit more versatile. Has a character that I currently play the Mercury. That's my amp. Whoops, I have one here. So, and then when I've done that, the Mercury, I try to please also some metal guys, and I found out, yeah, I learned my lesson when I had the modern channel on the Mercury. It is like one metal tone, but I'm a classic rock player and pop and whatever, but I'm not the metal expert. I'm a bit too old for that. But I learned so much about metal, and I got fascinated about it. And then I thought, you know what? I make a dedicated all metal high gain expert machine for those guys. And painted black, and of course looks different, and there we go. And yeah, this was a challenge, a personal challenge for myself, to make an amp for other guys in the way that they are totally happy. And it was an experiment for me, because I didn't know, because it was just like, I liked what I've done. And it took me 3 iterations to get there. Number 1, I remember I showed some people, some people like it, and sometimes you get compliments, and it's like, yeah, but and I don't want to hear it. I want to have it straight. If people complain about it, that's the best. That's the best for me, because then I know what to do. If it's all good, yeah. And if I have, you know, a lot of people telling me it's all good, then I know, okay, maybe it's okay now. Yeah. So this was the story about the 3 versions we know now.
Yeah, one of the great features of your amps is the portability of them.
Yeah.
For an amp to be portable, it has to be sturdy still. The components inside have to be secure and not move around, and it has to be lightweight. How much time and energy did you spend on that aspect?
Actually, a lot. When you look at the construction, it is an aluminium housing case, top case, and the top case is designed in a way that you actually can stand on both sides, at least with my weight. I've done that. And what happens is there are the feet, which are rubber feet, and they will be compressed to the point where the aluminium touches the floor. So there is no physical stress on the internal PCB and parts. So that's one aspect of the whole thing. The next thing is, like, I designed my own foot switches to be able to use foot switches that don't make that much noise like the old ones do, that feel in a certain way, and they can even be replaced or cleaned by the customer themselves if they know what to do and how to do it. Wait a minute, maybe I can do it. Almost, they are only clipped in, but they are so sturdy in a way, because you can still stand on them. Yeah, with a little knife I can get them out. Here, maybe. Yeah, I got it. Okay, it's coming. So maybe the camera can see. This is my foot switch, which is simply clicked in this, and internally I use one of those micro switches, which make millions of switching functions, you know. And then if there's something wrong, you can simply swap that thing and then clip it back in, and off you go. And you know, nothing rattles, nothing. And yeah, it is designed that way, and it has a recess for a handle, so you can put it on top of a cabinet if you want kind of to replace a head, if you are used to have something standing on your cabinet. But it's mainly designed to be on your pedal board or on the floor. So this is kind of yeah, I worked on the design factor as well. You know, all the knobs, they are reminiscent in a way of Fender here, and kind of little Marshall-esque here. So classic stuff that guitar players like. And yeah, that's what I spend some time with that. Yeah, it takes and it goes also step 1, step 2, prototype 1. This is kind of I think 3 or 4 versions of the Amp1, how we see it today. And of course it started with something more simple in a basic whatever housing, and then try to make a new form factor, try that out, see how that works, and you know, how is it slippery, is it too light. I was raising the foot switch section, so when the foot comes with the angle that is never touching the controls here. And by now I can tell you that I even had ideas how to protect the knobs with something that would cover them, but it's not needed. If the design is right, you know, all this extra bullshit is not needed. But this all goes through your head, and then of course you have to try it out and see if it's sturdy, and I think it is.
Acoustic guitar technology, acoustic guitar emulation, to me is still a work in progress.
Right.
Getting a good acoustic sound on stage has always been a journey for artists. Is that an area that you're interested in exploring?
Not with the Amp 1, but with my next project I'm working on, which is called the Amp X, which will be kind of a super flexible device that brings this concept to another level. It's still like a 100 watts nanotube guitar amp, but including effects, including everything that you know from the modern gear. The difference is I'm doing that with my analog technology, combining it with digital control and some digital effects that are just kind of mixed on top of the dry analog signal. So I'm very proud to have no latency and no conversion from input to output for the dry signal, which means it still feels exactly like this guy here or a real good old tube amp. But on the other hand, it gives me all these different sound applications that guitar players need, because you know, me being a touring player, I had the same problem. I had my acoustic guitar and some DI box, and some guy was routing it on the PA system, and the sound on my monitor was not inspiring. You know, it was sounding like a most of the time. So I totally understand acoustic guitar needs some processing in a way, unless you would have just a microphone to pick up a beautiful sounding acoustic guitar. But on a stage, that it would feedback. So, you know, everybody uses the built-in pickups, and they are piezo pickups most of the time. And we all know that they are sounding a bit harsh and stuff. Anyway, I'm aware of all that, and this will be one aspect in my future Amp X, which should be coming out, which is coming in 2021. I'm not giving an exact date because it's so complex, and it's finished when it's finished.
Yeah. Where do you see amp technology going? Say, in 20 years' time, what do you think a guitar rig will look like?
I think we see still 3-4 different kinds of guitar rigs. I still think there will be some straight ahead tube amps out there, because the electric guitar is a piece of wood with a couple of pickups plugged into something which gives the whole thing more character. And one way to do that is having a speaker driven by a tube amp, because it's always been that way, and there's a magic about every component in there. The housing of like a combo, the power amp stage of a combo, the preamp stage, blah, blah, blah. And if you don't need that kind of modern versatility, there's nothing wrong about it besides the weight. But, you know, some people don't need to have the 100 watt twin reverb anymore. They play whatever, a 15 watt something, and it's okay. So I think we will see that still as being part of the history and the character of the electrical guitar in general. So the other end of the scale, of course, will be the digital guys, which I believe will make progress too. I could see the first digital amps appear with line 6 in whenever was this, a few decades ago, and I think they showed the world how easy it is to get, complete rigs, and now you can do it even on your laptop. And there's a young generation of guitar players that are grown up with laptops, and they probably like the plug-in of a GCM 800, and then one day they might even buy an old GCM 800 just to see how it was back in the days, So there's the total modern world of digital evolution on the other side of the spectrum, and then I think I try to fit in as most possible into the analog side, but I try to be the same when it comes to the sonic aspects as the real tube amps. That's my benchmark, and I hate to make compromises, so I'm very serious about that. But I try to offer a modern form factor, because if you look at the basic great old tube amps, they offer something that has one sound, one character, and as I said, like on Woodstock, it is forming the guitar player to create his own style. But the reality of a lot of guitar players is that they are playing like cover bands, top 40 bands, and the first song is AC/DC, and the next song is Earth, Wind and Fire, and the third song might be some grunge band, and the next one can be anything. And then the acoustic guitar. And if you are just using the old school tube amp, that's not a good solution, because you have more problems. So me, with my experience from that kind of side of the business, I try to get a solution that makes the guitar player feel the real deal. Maybe looks a bit different, but it's a pleasure to set up, tear down after the gig, and have a great life. That's my approach with the whole thing.
Well, Thomas Blug, it's been great to catch up with you, and thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me, and I hope I see Australia in the very near future. I'm really a big fan of that country, and whenever there is a music show, let me know, because that's a good excuse for me coming there as the business guy, but actually spending a quality time as a private person there. Thanks.
We actually run the Melbourne Guitar Show, a 2-day event here, but unfortunately that didn't happen this year, so maybe next year.
Yeah. Okay, maybe see you there next year.